I recently delivered a talk at the third annual Best Practices in Teaching and Learning Conference 2025, organized by the American University of Sharjah, Amity University Dubai, and Abu Dhabi University. In that presentation, I dived into one of the most urgent questions educators face today. How do we assess learning in the age of generative AI? Here's a presentation which is condensed just for you. So let's begin not with a theory, but with a story. In 2023, 3 students at the Emory University created an AI-powered tool called 8Ball. Now what this tool did is that it turned lectures and lecture notes into flashcards and short quizzes. The university celebrated them at the beginning. They in fact even won a $10,000 for innovation. But you know what? Just a few months later, 2 of the students who developed this tool were facing suspension. Why? Concerns that their tool could be used for cheating. Although there was no actual proof that it had been misused. Now that single incident says so much about us. We are still not sure how to handle AI in education, whether it could be in policy, pedagogy, and especially in assessment. We celebrate the tool until they start to scare us. So the real question becomes, when generative AI entered our classroom and entered your classroom, how did you respond? Did you adapt, redesign? Did you resist? So if students now live in a world of AI, why is it that our assessment are still stuck in a world without it? And let's be honest here, students have always found a way to cut corners. Generative AI just happens to be the flashiest tool in the box right now. But the impulse to bypass it, that's older than any chatbot. We have spent years building a fortress around assessment, be it the plagiarism warning, the surveillance tools, the rubrics that we have designed. We have designed an entire systems to catch the cheaters before they cheat. And this is a sequence of what we have did to combat generative AI in the class. First, we banned the AI, then we unbanned it, then we brought in the detectors, and now we know for a fact that the detectors not always really work. This cat and mouse game is exhausting, and frankly, it is a distraction. Because maybe the real issue isn't the tool. Maybe the real issue is what we are asking our students to do. Be it the 5-part paragraph essay, the end of the term worksheet, or maybe the last minute research summary, which is being cobbled together, to tick the grading box. This assessment weren't designed for deep learning. They were designed for easy grading, for scale, for control. But you know what? That particular fortress, it is crumbling. And AI didn't break it. AI has just showed us how weak the foundations already were. If the only thing keeping a task honest is the threat of being caught, I think it might be time to ask if the task is worth doing at all. So instead of building higher walls, maybe we need to rethink the blueprint. Like, what are we assessing? Why are we assessing? And is it truly aligned with the skills we claim to value? Let's talk about what we really need to do in this new reality. Not bulletproof assessments. Bulletproof assessments don't exist. What we need are layered assessments. Now, think of the James Reason Swiss cheese model. In this particular model, every cheese we know has holes, like vulnerabilities. But when you stack these slices just right, layer upon layer, the holes no longer line up. And that's what slows things down. And that's what creates friction. Each layer of defense might fail, but when they're combined, they form a reliable system of protection. So what does this mean for us? And what does this mean for us, particularly in the classroom? It means instead of designing one perfect assignment, we build in small frictions that slows misuse. So for example, I teach filmmaking, so start with a mind map of the video script before they even begin writing. This helps you assess early thinking and structure. Now follow that with a peer review of the first draft of their film. So what happens, the feedback is built into the whole creative process, not just like bolted at the end. Then ask them to create a video journal, which is like a reflection on how they approached, for example, writing their research paper. What worked, what changed, what were the challenges they faced. And finally, I think the best way would be to hold a live critique and open discussion where the students explain their choices and responses to the questions. And this isn't about catching them out. It's about understanding their process. Now, when ChatGPT first dropped in the late 2022, what did we do as educators? We basically panicked. Bans were issued, policies were drafted overnight. But fast forward to 2025, and something remarkable has actually happened. Take, for example, the AI assessment scale, AIAS, which was developed by Perkins and others. And this particular model was just updated last month. And it does not really say AI good or AI bad. It actually offers 5 transparent layers of AI integration. Everything from level 1, which is no AI, all the way to level 5, which is full AI as co-pilot. Now this shift actually inspired me to build my own system for a film analysis course I did last fall. And on your screen, you'll see what my students had to submit. They had to also submit what AI they used, at what stage, at what level of control they had. And this level of transparency does primarily 2 things. Number 1, it tells me what I'm really grading. Number 2, it makes the student think critically about their own use of AI. But the fundamental question still remains. Why are students turning to AI in the first place? Why are they submitting work that does not sound like them? And the real reason, you'll be surprised, is that grades, they work like candy. They are like this sugary little rewards, which is motivating in the short term, but corrosive in the long run. What Alfie Kohn calls as punished by rewards. When the only goal is the grade, the process doesn't matter. Learning doesn't matter. So when AI offers shortcuts, of course, the students are going to take them. Who wouldn't? And let's go a bit deeper into the cognitive impact, especially something that we are noticing in both the secondary and also in the higher education. One of the most discussed effects of generative AI is what the researchers are now calling cognitive offloading. Now, this refers to the tendency to bypass the mental effort and transfer the task to an external system. Now, in this case, it is the AI. We are actually seeing students using AI to not just assist, but to fully generate answers, ideas, and solutions, which often is doing without engaging the learning material. And what's the result? The result is a significant drop in active recall, a significant drop in the metacognition and conceptual understanding. And this is the problem. Because the AI is giving the illusion of understanding, the student may produce a very polished answer, but has not necessarily processed or internalized the content. And what happens is that this leads to some scholars what they are calling as metacognitive laziness. The effort to evaluate, reflect, or even question information drops dramatically. We have spent decades designing active learning environments. We have designed flipped classroom, constructivist and experiential pedagogies. And now we face a tool that tempts the students to reverse all of that, to return to the passivity And that's a serious challenge for anyone serious about cognitive development. And this is where the self-determination theory really kicks in. Because what it does is that it shifts our approach from compliance to authentic engagement. We don't need to trick the students into learning with rewards, or in fact even scare them with basically penalties. Instead, what we need to do is that we need to build an environment where they feel in control, capable, and connected. And this is exactly where AI, when scaffolded thoughtfully, can support the learner without replacing them. What AI can do is that it can personalize the path, offer timely feedback, and open up new avenues for creativity. If we embed AI into the 3 core drivers of motivation, autonomy, and competence, and relatedness, then it stops becoming a shortcut. It stops being a cheat code, and it becomes something far more meaningful, a co-pilot in the learning journey. When assignments give students a real choice in how they use AI, whether it is used for outlining an idea or clarifying a concept or even prototyping their thinking, we are nurturing autonomy. When we show them how to use AI to visualize their progress, spot blind spots, and get iterative feedback, we are building this sense of competence. And remember, they are not just completing tasks, they are getting better at how they learn. And I know for a fact that most people might be thinking, like, I teach big classes, how does it offer me any help? I want to be very clear that I'm not here to offer any universal solution. What am I doing here is offering a window into the specific practices that I have found useful. And not just AI proof, but AI positive. Ideas that you can borrow, reshape, or just use it as a spark. Over the past 3 years, my students at the American University of Ras Al Khaimah have actually consistently, and I would say, and I'm very proud of it, that they have taken home the top prizes in the National Undergraduate Research Competition. And while I'm incredibly proud of their work, what I find remarkable is that how they actually got there. And let me be very clear here, like, AI did not write their papers. It did not think for them. But it definitely did supercharge the entire process. And that's what I want to show you now, is actually what I do is a very layered, transparent, and at the same time an empowering research journey that uses AI not as a shortcut, but as a scaffolding. In this particular process, we don't just throw prompts at ChatGPT and hope for magic. We actually start with a tool which I love absolutely right now, is Perplexity. It's a brilliant tool for actually scoping credible sources. It also allows you to ask very specific follow-up questions and helps you to exclude the junk results. And honestly, you can really dig deeper using Perplexity. And then we bring in the ResearchRabbit. It's a source mapping tool that actually helps my students to identify the key papers and identify the gap in the research. And once all the sources are basically shortlisted, downloaded, we move them to the NotebookLM. It's truly a game changer. Google NotebookLM lets students upload PDF, they can include a video link from YouTube, they can upload the audio transcript, upload audio files, and then they can ask source-specific questions. Now what happens is that this eliminates the hallucination and creates a very grounded, source-driven research framework. And once the ideas, they start flowing, the students then use ChatGPT, because I feel it's great for any kind of creative work, and they create the outline using ChatGPT. And from there, it is basically Zotero, which helps them to clean the citations for quick access and for reference management. And here's what matters most. The students are required to log their use of AI. They actually document every stage, every tool that they have used, every prompt that they have typed, and what exact feedback did they receive, and how they acted on it. So what happens is that each student submits not only the final product, but their prompt logs. They submit the source evaluations, they submit the outline feedback, the iterations, and finally, what they do is that they record a reflection video, which is usually 5 to 7 minutes or sometimes 10 minutes, which records how did AI help me, Where did it confuse me? What choices did I have to make? So where do we go from here? We can't return to the past. And we also can't let the future be dictated solely by what tech companies wants to sell us. So what we need to do is that we need to fundamentally rethink assessment, not as a product, but as a process. Assessments in the age of AI must be layered. It should measure both the process and the product of learning. It should be transparent, allowing students to reflect on how they used AI, not just what they produced. It should be adaptive, which helps us to combine the traditional methods of new forms of multimodal evidence. It should be ethical, drawing boundaries around what is acceptable in terms of AI and what isn't. But more than that, it has to be human. Because the goal of education is not just to produce answers, but to shape minds. I believe that this layered approach is how we move from control to consciousness. From checking for cheating to checking in with learning. And I want to close my presentation with this particular Jenga problem. We have built higher and higher, adding AI on top of everything. But you know what? But underneath, we have weakened the structure. When students bypass the struggle, the reflection, the questioning, we are not accelerating learning. We are actually hollowing it. And right now, AI in education feels like a game of Jenga. Every time we remove a foundational block, be it truth, deep focus, and authentic process, we risk a collapse. So, the question isn't how high we can build with AI. The question is, how strong is our foundation? So this is exactly where I want to leave you with today. I don't want to leave you with a prescription, but with a provocation. Let's stop treating assessment like a structure to be gamed. Let's build it slowly, thoughtfully, with transparency, reflection, and trust at the core. That's it from my side. This is Dr. Sabir Haque, Associate Professor at American University of Ras Al Khaimah, signing off. I hope you liked my presentation. Thank you so much.